I'm going to start off by saying, as I often do, that these are not necessarily my opinions, and probably are not my opinions. This is not all Americans, obviously. Not all Americans are this way. But our bias that we teach our children is taught nationwide. This propaganda that we pump into our children, these false beliefs. We start off at a very young age teaching both boys and girls that abuse means love, and it don't. There's also teaching our children that only men can be abusive, women can only be victims. We say you should always listen to the victim, but then that rule changes when it's a man. A man cannot be a victim. A man cannot be a victim. That's what we have pumped into us. If a man is abused and he speaks up, it's automatically his fault. If he curses back at a woman, it's his fault. If he is being assaulted over something that didn't happen, he is expected to just take it. When he goes to his friends, they blow him off because he's got a penis. I've had to deal with that for years. I also spoke up about it before I had to deal with it with this set of friends. See, the thing is, when you're not attractive and you don't have money and you're a male, you basically are by the wayside. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. They tell you nobody cares. But then again, if they're telling you they don't care or nobody cares, they care enough to say that, so they do care. They're saying those things specifically to be hurtful, specifically to be mean, many of them because other people did them wrong and they can't get at those other people. So you are the easiest person for them to take their aggression out on. This is not okay. Then there's the whole I gotta talk like I'm ignorant thing. You can speak Ebonics and not be completely ignorant. You can speak Ebonics and not sound completely ignorant. I've had conversations with many, many Southerners who are highly intelligent. Now, speaking Southern ain't the same as speaking Ebonics, is it? It's very similar. Kind of like here in Nebraska, there's a lot of words like ain't. I was told not to use the word ain't growing up because ain't a word. It makes me sound ignorant when I say ain't. Well, maybe so. But I grew up with a lot of people who use the word ain't. Now, then there's a lot of folks that I know that, and this is primarily young black males and young white females who are like this, especially in Boulder, Colorado. You get a bunch of, well, I'm going to give you one example. There was a friend of mine in Boulder. He was black. And he always talked, well, like he was a gangster, right? But he also wanted to speak Ebonics, like he knew what the hell he was doing. Like automatically, people are gonna assume that he come from a lower South Side, like he grew up with nothing, like he don't have rich parents, and he does have rich parents. I've been to his mama's house. He don't talk to his mama like that. He don't drop that ignorance in front of his mama. And he don't drop the N bomb, even if it is an A on the end, because his mama will slap the fucking taste out of his mouth. So I've been fighting for men's rights for a bit too. I don't just fight for women's rights. Because the thing is, men as victims are ignored or victimized even more for being victimized. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen to women, I'm saying it is far more prevalent with men. A man, if he's got an issue with a woman, it pretty much stays between him and her from his side, generally. With a woman, she's more likely to get all of her friends involved and all of their husbands and boyfriends involved. She is more likely to do property damage. She is more likely to strike the male, but that's not what we're taught. Police are more likely to let a woman go after committing a crime. Women get pulled over about as often as men when it comes to driving infractions, but a woman is 6 times less likely to get a ticket for it. There was a woman, I believe it was last week, that I personally know who was complaining that she got a ticket driving 20 miles per hour over the speed limit in a residential zone. Now, in most places in America, and I don't know exactly what it is where you live, but in most places in America, a residential zone, you're looking at between 5 miles an hour and 25 miles an hour. If you're in an apartment complex, many of those, the speed limit is 5 or 10. You're not allowed to go faster. If you are on a public street, not in an apartment complex, it's generally 10 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, depending on what state you're in. Here in Chapel, Nebraska, Main Street is the Eisenhower or no, the Lincoln Highway system. Um, I believe, but you're allowed to drive Main Street 25 miles an hour. Everywhere else in Chapel, Nebraska, it's 15 miles an hour. This woman was driving 20 miles over the speed limit. Now, here in Nebraska, if you're driving more than 10 miles over the speed limit, it's automatic jail time, like immediately. Not, hey, we're going to give you a ticket and a court date and you can show up later. You're automatically supposed to go to jail. They're supposed to haul you off then and there. So, this woman who was driving 20 miles over the speed limit was complaining that she got a ticket for something that she should have gone to jail for. Now, there's different laws in different states. Some of them, I mean, if you're talking about here in Chapel, Nebraska, you want to drive up to 6th Street, the speed limit is 15. If you're driving 20 miles over the speed limit, you're more than double the speed limit. Somebody's kid comes out between two vehicles, you don't have time to stop. You're going to fucking kill somebody's kid. This is extremely irresponsible. A lot of people want to say that they don't think that drunk driving is a big thing. I got a lot of people I know knew who are dead because of drunk drivers, including drunk drivers, but generally, well, they end up killing other people. I know a lot of alcoholics that the only reason they survived the accident that they ended up killing people in is because they were passed out and limp. Passed out at the wheel and killed people. Now, a lot of these young black men and young white women that I know that want to pretend like they grew up in the ghetto and they want to speak all the bonics and stuff, them white girls, well, they don't talk like that in front of their mamas either. Just the way I talk. No, it ain't. You pretend you got a southern twang in your voice while you're trying to speak ebonics. Meanwhile, you're a northerner. You grew up in an upper middle class white household. That ain't just the way you talk. That's the way that you trained yourself to talk because the groups that you want to fit in with. It ain't everybody's fault that you do that, but you're fake as all fuck for doing it. A lot of women are, well, we're taught that black men have bigger penises than white men. Is that true? No, it's not. On average, is it true? No, it's not. But we still perpetuate it. Now we've got a situation where there's a whole bunch of black women who are hateful towards black men because black men are dating white women. Well, you know what? You can date whoever the hell you want. Who cares what color you are? If my little sister wanted to date a black man, so? So what? What if she wanted to date a Hispanic? What if she wanted to date somebody from another country altogether? What if she wanted to date a black South African? I'd be fine with it. What about my female friends? What if they decide that they want to date a black man? I'm fine with it. What if they decide that they don't want to date white men? They're 100% against dating white men. Well, then I'm against it. It's racism. You can be not attracted to white men. That's fine. It's still racist, whether it's intentional or not. And that's something that a lot of people don't want to pay attention to. We've got a lot of hatred and a lot of racism coming from the black community. And we're told that it's okay. We're told that this systematic racism is wrong, but it's okay for different elements of our society to be racist. Well, look at where they grow up. It must be okay for them to be that way because look at how they grew up. Well, look at how people like me grew up. A lot of people are going through a lot of horrible stuff and trying to separate it and only care about certain victims. Only certain people are capable of being victims. Only certain people are allowed to be victims. We're supposed to listen to the victim, but then we don't if it's a male. There's what we're taught and then what we do. We're taught that we need to treat women equally, but then when we treat women equally, we're told that we're being sexist because women can't do this or women can't do that. You know, using reason is not something that a woman is incapable of. I know plenty of reasonable women. There's a woman named Bridget Stegeman. She went to school here. She's highly intelligent, and she is probably one of the few, if not the only, person in this town who is more intelligent than me. And Bridget didn't argue with me about anything. We did talk. We didn't talk every day. She wasn't somebody that I hung out with all the time. I hung out with her brother Chris. And even him, I didn't hang out with or go over and visit him every day. It was just, he was one of the people that I knew here that kind of sort of accepted me. Bridget didn't start stupid fights over nothing. Bridget, when you were speaking to her, she understood what it is that you were talking about. A lot of this stuff, she had probably primed herself with an education beforehand just out of general interest. So, really, what point is there with arguing with Bridget? It would be better to have a conversation, to pick her brain and to learn something from her. Now, we get a lot of this stuff about how it's a man's field when it comes to dating. No, it's not. There are many women out there, and this woman who wanted to pretend like she was, I don't know where she was trying to pretend she was from, south side of Philly, maybe, except for the country twang. So that would be like, well, I don't even know. I couldn't place it. I really couldn't. But her and many, many other women were all talking about how, well, if they like a guy, they'll give him the look. What look? I can't read your mind. If a man is expected to say it, well, a woman should be expected to say it too. When I was attracted to Jessica Martindale, I let her know. I asked her out. When she said no, that was the end of it. Now, how was I supposed to know that she would not reciprocate that unless I voiced it, unless I said something, unless I actually got off my ass and did something other than just think about it or talk about it with my friends? Now, I never asked out Bridget Stegeman. I did have a crush on her, but I didn't ask her out because I valued her brain. By the time I was in high school, I had already seen enough people's brains get boiled over just the concept of sex. And for me, it was never about sex. Um, Matter of fact, it wasn't until a few years later in life that somebody asked me, "Hey, do you want to have sex with her?" Well, no. Well, if you're not interested in having sex with her, why ask her out? You're just leading her on. Well, that makes sense to me. I don't want to have sex with anybody, so I'm just not going to ask anyone out. But also, I get to see how a lot of people are getting that way now. And we get told, well, men are only doing this, men are doing that, men aren't dating. Why would we? Why would we want to? It's not like I'm the dude that you're wanting to date anyway. I'm not Tyson Beckford. I'm not Jason Momo. I'm the guy who you treat like shit. Yeah, if you're just going to treat me like shit, no, I don't want to date. If you treated the last man that you were with like he was your property, he existed to watch your children and fix your cable, I don't want to date you. That's not what I want in a relationship. If you want me to come over and fix something, just ask me to fix something. You don't have to pretend like you're interested in me to get that to happen. Jamie Curtis did that. She was my best friend, and that's the way it should have stayed. But then she had all these suitors coming over, and she kept on constantly wanting me to do stuff, so she'd flirt with me to try to get what she wanted. I didn't want nothing to do with that. I let her know repeatedly I didn't want nothing to do with that. But she was so pushy, you know. I was like, you know what? I'll give in. And as soon as I would give in, she was no longer interested. And then I'd go, well, that's fine. And I'd proceed with my life. And then with me proceeding with my life, she didn't want that. She didn't like that. Then all of a sudden, she had to throw herself at me some more. Sean, I need this done. Sean, I need that done. Well, how about stop batting your eyes at me? You don't have to bat your eyes at me to get me to do something. If you say, hey, the back door is right next to my son's room and it's drafty and it needs to have some sort of weather insulation there. You know what? You got a son. It makes perfect sense. That's good enough for me. You don't have to wink at me. You don't have to bat your pretty eyes at me. You don't have to do that. And you shouldn't have to. We got a lot of people that not necessarily even ebonics, they just want to sound like they're from somewhere other than they are. They want to believe things are different somewhere else, that things are possibly better somewhere else. That black guy in Boulder who wanted to speak ebonics when he was out on the mean streets of Boulder, he'd go home to his mom. You couldn't tell the difference between him and a white guy. His mom insisted that he was educated. He was educated in one of the best schools in Colorado. What school that was, I don't know. If his grammar wasn't perfect, she'd say something. If my grammar wasn't perfect, she said something. And, well, the thing is, we got a lot of people trying to pretend to be something they're not. They're trying to fit in with groups that they know nothing about. That guy in Boulder, he wanted to glorify a gangster lifestyle. But when you go to his house, you're like, man, the closest this guy has ever seen to gangster is on TV. The closest he's going to find to anybody speaking anywhere close to that, you got to go all the way to Colfax and Denver, and even those folks aren't talking like that. I mean, he lays it on thick. Every other word is the N bomb, whether it be an R or an A at the end doesn't make any difference, especially according to his mother. He also takes part in systematic racism of his own. See, he likes to intimidate people with his blackness. That's what he calls it. Well, that's just rude. Why would you want to perpetuate something like that? Why would you, an upper middle class person, well, he was better off than upper middle class. We'll say that. I can't say he's a millionaire by any means. I can't say that his daddy gave him $1 million loan or anything like that. But he was very well off. The consequences of him going down there and playing thug life and perpetuating this idea that black people are like that. I know lots of black people from the ghettos who are not like that. I know lots of folks from the ghettos whose life dream was to get out of the ghettos. Some of them come from major cities. The reason that they were homeless in Boulder, Colorado is because it's better than living in a fucking ghetto. For a while, anyway. Mark Swanigan said the streets of Chicago are dirty and nasty and filthy and full of death. He said Boulder is a lot prettier, but it's full of the same shit. We teach people that it's okay to be sexist. Men this and men that, women this and women that. One woman was talking about how there's 4 million men on the planet and she only had sex with 38 of them. So she shouldn't be treated like a hoe. Well, I'm not going to treat her like a hoe. I don't care who you had sex with. I don't care how many times you had sex with them. Not even a little bit. But there's a lot more than 4 million people on the planet. Now, there's a lot of stuff in there saying, oh, well, if a guy had sex with 70 people by the time he's 20, people applaud him. Really? No. I mean, sure, there's lots of guys out there who are like, oh man, I wish I was Jason Momo. I bet you he gets all the women. Well, maybe he does, maybe he don't. But why is that your business? Why is that what you're focusing on? Why do you need 30, 50, 70 women? Why do you need to have sex with that many? Well, if you're good looking, a lot of women that I know are like, hey, if you got it, flaunt it. Use it while you got it. If you find a guy attractive and you want to go have sex with him, it should be okay. Well, by that very same understanding, if it's equality, then a good looking man should be allowed to get away with that too, right? No, no, it's wrong for a guy. No, it's wrong either way. I'm not one of those guys who's had 70 women even ever flirt with him in his lifetime. I've had sex with way less than 70 women. I've had sex twice my whole life. Once with Brianna, once with Rayanna. And that's it. It's not important. Now, that's not to say that my equipment doesn't work, but my equipment is not the focus of this video. The focus of this video is your bias. Americans, what they teach. And there's a lot of people in the United States who are teaching their children different now. But it's few and far between, and we're not making a lot of headway because most of those people aren't working together. They don't know how. Our predators have years of experience. All right. When you first become homeless, you're basically on your own. You try to meet people. Maybe they know where the services are, and you might get some help, but it takes a while to build that up. Now, when you're a police officer, these guys have years of experience, years of accumulated experience, and they're passing this stuff down starting on day one on the job. I mean, Brandon Jepson was literally learning how to torture people when he was in Torrington, Wyoming, going to school for criminal justice. They don't call it torture. Now, if you look at the things that they call pain compliance, you'll notice that anywhere else in the world, these things are called torture. And where our American soldiers do this to soldiers who are considered our enemies, the United States catches a lot of flack because these things are called torture by the rest of the world. But somehow, magically, here in the United States, we do it to our own citizens, and it's called pain compliance. One of the points to pain compliance is to hurt someone into giving a false confession. It is very popular, it is very common, and it is taught to every single officer in the country. You cannot be a police officer and not be trained in pain compliance. Now, we got a lot of women who are complaining right now that everything as far as dating is all in a man's court. It's all up to a man. It's the man's expected to do this, that, and the other. You want to talk about equality, but then you want to stick with gender constraints that make it so that you aren't at all responsible. If you're attracted to a man and you never tell him, that's your fault. You're responsible for never telling him. A woman can ask out a man. You want equality, but then you want to stick with these gender norms. Well, that's not cool. A gender norm is not a reflection of reality, just like an average is not a reflection of reality. Sure, the average male is what, 6'1" here in America? That's average. That doesn't mean that every man is 6'1". There are going to be men who are taller than that. There are going to be men who are shorter than that, and that should be okay. Now, men are told that we're too superficial and we're not supposed to be attracted to a woman based on her bust size or how pretty her face is or the shape of her backside. Sorry, I had to get him to stop barking in his sleep. These gender norms, there's nothing normal about them. It's entirely inappropriate. All of it. None of it's okay. When I see posts talking about how horrible white people are, really, that's not racist. When I read posts about how terrible men are, really, that's not racist or that's not sexist. That's not hurtful. Men are supposed to not have any emotions unless they're emotions that you want them to have at the moment that you want them to have it. Let me tell you something, all right? Let's say you, as a woman, you are expecting men to ask you out, okay? What if it's not a man that you want to ask you out? What if the guy who asks you out is not 6 foot tall and really good looking and drive a Maserati? Well, what if somebody like me asked you out? What if someone who looked like me, someone who's bald, somebody who's got a beard, somebody who's, well, under 6 feet tall? Am I worth that chance? A lot of women won't date a man who is younger than them. The man has to be older. You know, that comes from the sickness that we teach girls right around puberty, that they're more mature than boys. No, they're not. Physically, they, on average, mature at a younger age than men. Physically mature. But mentally, no. Most of the women that I know never grew out of that junior high school mentality. That's in junior high school. They're told that they're more mature than boys. They go, oh, well, we have the advantage. We'll stay here. Meanwhile, they're staying in the junior high mentality. They never advance past that. And as a result, there are a great many men who advance mentally, emotionally, far better than women do. Far better. Because they're not stuck in that transitioning point of puberty. They're not stuck believing that they are more mature and they're going to always stay more mature just because they're female. Men don't get that. A man has to advance and mature. Has to. A lot of them don't. And we all catch flack for those guys, don't we? We all catch flack for the five good looking guys in town that everybody's dated. These five good looking guys who think that it's okay to treat women like trash, to go cheating on people when they're in a relationship, to beat on their girlfriends or their children or whoever. These five guys who are bullies to all of the people who are supposed nerds in town, all the people who are not popular. These five guys are jerks to all these people. And yet, most of the women in town have swooned, whined, pined, dated, or had one night stands with these guys, these same five guys. And these same five guys treat all these women the same, like they don't matter. Hey, I'm a good looking guy, you know? If I don't want this woman next week, it's easy for me to get rid of her because I got 10 more throwing themselves at me. You know, and we, as men, we are all punished for those five guys. We get to hear about how all men are pigs because of those five guys. Meanwhile, these women are sexually attracted to these men. They are throwing themselves at these men like $2 hookers and then pretending that all men think about is sex. You threw yourself at him because you were thinking about sex. You wanted sex. You put yourself in the position that you put yourself into with that man specifically because you wanted to have sex specifically with that man. That man is 6 foot tall. That man is good looking. That man has a nice car. That man has a nice job. That man has a nice house. That man has a pre built life for you to just step into. You didn't earn the car. You didn't earn the house. You didn't earn that stuff. Matter of fact, neither did he. And the five guys in this town that I think about, three of them inherited everything that they got. Everything. Now, is it right to condemn all men for men like those guys? Is it all right for you to throw yourself at those men over your sexual wants or desires? Is it okay for you to do that? Is it okay for a nerd to find you attractive? No, no, it's not all right for a nerd to find you attractive, but it's okay for you to find those five guys attractive. It's not okay for a nerd to think about possibly having a sexual relationship with you, but you are allowed to have an actual sexual relationship with one of those five guys. What if that nerd doesn't want to have sex with you? Does that make it okay when you do something horrible to him because you want to be popular or you want to impress one of those five guys? Does that make it okay for you to destroy that nerd's life by pretending that he just wanted sex? And then you want to talk about the men who beat you. I didn't date you, and I didn't beat you. So why am I taking the punishment? I didn't have sex with you or try to have sex with you, but you are condemning me as if I did, just because I'm not attractive to you. You are allowed to find me not attractive. You are allowed to tell me, no, I don't want to date you. No, I don't want to kiss you. No, I don't want to, so on and so forth. It's allowed. I think that if you don't find me attractive, you should be allowed to not find me attractive. But at the same time, if I do find you attractive, that doesn't make me a bad person. If you're allowed to find people attractive, so am I. All right, somebody's spamming the shit out of me. Um, so what I'm going to do, they just popped up 4 of these things in a row. Hide user on this channel. I don't need spammers. They're not necessary. All right. And all those messages are deleted. You see how easy that is? A lot of times when you're a man, you're not allowed to say no. You already know what's going to happen if you say no. If a woman is drunk and you have sex with her, she may say she doesn't remember it in the morning. But for some odd reason, when you tell them no, they always remember it in the morning. Why is that? Why is it that you black out and have sex with people, but if they won't have sex with you, you don't black out? If you try when you're drunk to have sex with a man who just rescued you from some assholes, you just puked in the bushes and you got puke on your face and you're wanting to kiss the guy and he says no, and this actually happened to me, by the way, and he says no and he doesn't cross your threshold and he goes back to his spot to go to sleep, that should be okay. It should be okay that he did not take advantage of you while you were drunk. But then the next 5, 10 times that you see him, you get incredibly cruel to him and mean and hateful, as if he did something wrong by not taking advantage of a drunk woman who's got puke on her face. No, I don't want to kiss you when you got puke on your face. That's disgusting. That doesn't make you a bad person. But if you're going to come treat me like crap because I didn't have sex with you while you were drunk, well, that does make you a bad person. We're not going to change this world by going at the throats of the other victims. I know that there are a great many black folks out there who have been racially profiled by the police. But I know there's a lot more homeless people being racially profiled by the police, and nobody seems to care. I fight for the rights of black folks because that shit is not okay. It's not. But I also fight for the rights of the homeless because if it's wrong to do to black people, it's wrong to do to the homeless. But instead of making that connection, instead of seeing the homeless as human beings and including them, the homeless are told why they deserve it. They're told that they're a bunch of junkies and a bunch of child molesters and a bunch of rapists and a bunch of criminals who are all homeless because they're criminals. You know, the number one reason for girls to become homeless is fleeing domestic violence. You know what? It's the same for men, but we don't write that down. Insurance goes up for men a lot more than it goes up for women because men are more likely to get a ticket. They're not more likely to get pulled over, though. That means that women are being given special treatment. Women are just as likely to commit a traffic offense as a man. Women are 6 times less likely to get a ticket for it. So insurance goes up for men and not for women. Is that because women aren't doing anything wrong? No, it's not. It's because cops are doing something wrong. Cops are gender profiling for certain. Women are 11 times more likely to be stalkers than men. Men are more likely to be arrested and convicted. There's a lot of men who have been arrested and convicted because They were stalked by women, but not just women. A very specific woman, in many cases, that they told no, or that they set their foot down and said, "Hey, I'm not buying any more shit for you. You're a gold digger." And so they went to their friends, spread just the right rumors to get a bunch of people doing things that they shouldn't. And when you get people who hate somebody that much because you spread those rumors, those people hate them enough to lie over and over again if that's what it takes. So now you got 5, 10, 15 witnesses all willing to say you did something that you didn't. Now, I've never had to deal with that, not until after Natalie died, and people I'd never met wanted to pretend like I was doing some harm to Selena Not Afraid. And as we all know, Selena Not Afraid was killed in Montana. Where was I when Selena Not Afraid disappeared? Right here in this house in Chapel, Nebraska. But we're taught that it's okay to do these things, that it's okay to target people, and we know what it is that makes it okay to target somebody according to our society. People are well aware of that. A lot of these racists from the KKK and organizations like that want to pretend that they're not being racist, they're still playing on those racist bias, which means that they know that they're not being honest. It shows that they know that they are being racist and that they are playing on racist bias. We need to get to the point where instead of it being illegal to do it to one person but not to another, equality means it's wrong either way. Equality means that if the police brutalize a black man, it's just as wrong as brutalizing a white man. If they're brutalizing a black man, it's just as horrible as brutalizing a black woman. Police brutality, if that's the issue, we need to focus on that. When the majority of the victims are homeless or disabled, and we're ignoring those people because their skin color may be wrong, or because they're homeless, their skin color no longer matters. We're showing how terrible we are as a country. The most victimized people in this country don't even account for 0.33%. All right. They are less than 1/3 of 1% of our population accounts for 81% of those incarcerated. There are more hate crimes against those individuals than all other hate crimes in this country combined times 5. It's not a small number. The homeless are your go to when it comes to having someone to take your shit out on. Your daddy raped you, you go take it out on a homeless person. That's not me telling you to go take it out on a homeless person. This is me stating as a fact that this is what you as Americans are taught is acceptable, and as a result, you do it. You got into an argument with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you go down and you take it out on a homeless person. You didn't get what you wanted for your 16th birthday, you go out and you take it out on a homeless person. You got a ticket because you were driving like a fucking moron. Now you got to pay money. You go out and you take it out on a homeless person. You know, I'm always broke. You guys are getting free this and free. Oh my God, dude. There's a woman in Colorado named Victoria. She's been trying to get help for a few years. She was living out of a vehicle with her kid until they took her kid away. She jumped through their hoops. The problem is that, see, she was promised that she would get help if she went to all these different places where there's all these supposed resources. One of these places, it's a food bank. In order to go to the food bank, you have to go to 2 classes a week with their church. So you go to these 2 classes a week with the church so that you can go and get from the food bank once a month. And everything that you get from the food bank, you got to be able to, first of all, fit in your vehicle with everything that's going to keep you from freezing to death this winter. You got to fit that food in there, and you also got to make sure that you get food that is either non perishable or food that you don't have to cook. Now, for her, having to drive her vehicle to somewhere where it's safe for her to stay for the night, sort of, and then have to drive all the way to a completely different city so that you can go to these classes so that one day a month you can get that food, you're spending more time and more money than it's worth. I mean, just in gas alone, plus you're figuring every day that you've got to go to one of these classes or one of these services, you're taking a whole day to do that because it's going to take a whole day. There's probably going to be a line that you're going to have to stand in for hours. And even if there isn't a line, you're going to have to fill out paperwork. Meanwhile, most of the time that you're going to these places, you're not getting the services. You're going to the classes with this special church group because this special church group is getting special money for helping out people. In reality, they're not actually helping you out. The one day a month they actually help you out with food, it is costing you more to go to these classes so these places can get government funding. It is costing you more to go there than it is worth it at a food. If you're spending $200 worth of, well, first of all, your hours, you are spending a whole day there. You're not out getting a job. You're not out working your job. You're trying to get food. A lot of people say, oh, well, if you just go to work, you get paid and you get to eat. You know what? You still got to eat while you're trying to get your first paycheck, don't you? Your first paycheck is probably at least 3 weeks out. That's if you started at the very beginning of a pay period and you're going to feel real lucky for yourself because you're going to get a full paycheck. But the thing is, you still have to wait 3 weeks to get it. You still have to put gas in your vehicle. You still have to eat. Now we got a lot of folks who are, well, they're scammers. There really are a lot of those. But as we've been noticing, when you're on the bottom, you don't get the help that you need. If you have to scam to get something in order to survive, well, the bankers are allowed to do it. The politicians are allowed to do it. The governors, the senators, the police are allowed to do it. These churches are allowed to do it. That money that those churches are getting paid for you to go to those classes, and they get paid more money depending on how many people they have as a head count. So you're going to this church, you're taking these classes, they're getting money, but they're not offering a worthwhile service. What they're doing is wasting your time and wasting your money because they're getting paid. And they may not even see it that way. Many of those people at those churches may think that they're doing you a favor. They're doing something good. They're not. If you're spending $200 in resources for $50 worth of food, you're not making even. You're not breaking even. You're not all right in the end. And that's the problem with so many ignorant people being in charge of these services. They've never been there.